Reagan-era statute that gives the government the power to prosecute someone for doing the right thing for the wrong reason will come under scrutiny in the Supreme Court this week. The, quote, honest services statute is so vague and open-ended that it allows the government to prosecute any government official or business person for acting on an impure motive, even if the acts were otherwise lawful and beneficial to the government or the business entity. For example, former Newark Mayor Sharpe James was convicted of violating this statute because he sold city real estate at prevailing market prices to a woman who also delivered some sexual favors to him. And numerous corporate executives have been indicted because they told small lies or did small favors for friends, even though their corporate entities were not harmed as a result. If the Supreme Court declares this tyrannical statute unconstitutional, as it should, the front doors of white-collar federal prisons will soon open widely. Joining me now is William Anderson, Associate Professor of Economics at Frostburg State University in Maryland. Professor Anderson wrote an excellent piece on this topic called The Ultimate Prosecutorial Weapon, Honest Services Fraud, which you can read at LouRockwell.com. Professor, welcome back to Freedom Watch.
Hey, good afternoon, Judge. How are you doing?
Fine, and it's good to have you here. Tell us in a nutshell what the Honest Services Law is and why it's on the books.
Well, it says that people who work either in private business or the federal government should not deprive the public or others of, quote, of their intangible right. That's a term in the law, intangible right to honest services. All right, what's the problem? Well, lots of problems, but let's look at one, and that is who defines honest services.
Well, in the example that I gave of the former mayor of Newark, he sold real estate that the city owned at prevailing market rates. In fact, she actually got a little bit more than some of the government estimators said the real estate was worth, and that money went to the city of Newark. So far, no problem. Then it turns out that the woman to whom he sold this real estate was also providing some sexual favors to him. She was his girlfriend. So the city not only didn't lose a nickel, it got top dollar for the real estate. But because the government persuaded a jury that the mayor wanted to do a favor for his girlfriend, he's spending 27 months in jail. Question, who was harmed by what Mayor Sharpe James did?
Oh, nobody. And forget that, Monica Lewinsky didn't get any federal property for market value. So, I mean, it seems to me that this woman did more for Newark than Monica Lewinsky did more than for the Clinton administration.
Give us a few other examples, Professor, of the abuse of this statute by federal prosecutors who, if they want to get somebody, can almost find anybody who's operated on an impure motive if they can prove it.
Oh, exactly. Well, the thing to keep in mind is that this allows them to target anybody they choose. This is a pure political type law because it allows this is Berea in action. This is show me the man and I'll find you the crime. I'll give you an example, though, controversial, but nonetheless, there's the Alaska legislator who is one of the people bringing this challenge to the law. Okay, he did not disclose something, a relationship with another firm, in his disclosure, but the state law in Alaska did not require him to do it. So he was staying within the law, but the feds tried and got him convicted on honest services fraud because it said he should have disclosed that, and by not disclosing it, he was depriving Alaskans of honest services, and yet, I mean, no one was harmed. This was not it was not a big secret, but nonetheless, it was a way for the feds to simply be, and for the executive branch of the federal government to be able to go after somebody.
All right, take the case of Conrad Black, the historian, who is also or was also a Canadian businessman. I mean, basically convicted in federal court in Chicago for selling corporate assets to a friend. But he sold the corporate assets at the market rate. He got the corporation of which he was the chair, the fair market value for these assets, and he had the authority as the chair and CEO of the corporation to make the sale. but because he also had this relationship with another entity, and that entity was run by a friend, and he wanted to enrich the friend, he's in federal jail. When I was a first-year law student a long time ago, one of the first things you learn is crime is harm. So if there's no harm, where's the crime? Question, does this statute really just punish thoughts and punish motivation as opposed to punishing harm or punishing evil deeds?
Oh, I think you're right. And also, it allows the federal prosecutor to put his or her opinion into an act. It says this: I don't care if the act is legal or not. If I don't like what you did, if I think what you did is wrong, I'm going to find a way to criminalize it. And if you think about that, okay, this now makes it, as far as I'm concerned, both an ex post facto law, because now we're going to revisit this thing. We're going to say, did you actually commit a crime or not? When at the time, nobody thought anybody's committing any kind of a crime here. Okay, you reinterpreted an act.
Right.
In our reinterpretation, we're going to make it criminal.
Right.
Also,
Well, in both cases that we're talking about, whether it is the mayor of Newark selling dilapidated property downtown, or whether it's Conrad Black selling a very valuable asset from his corporation to another corporation, in both instances, the act itself was not criminal, and in each case, the recipient of the cash got not only fair market value, but top dollar. So somehow the government finds some impure motivation. In the case of the mayor, he wanted to help his girlfriend. In the case of Conrad Black, he wanted to help some company because his friend owned a lot of stock and he wanted to enrich the friend. So it is really the thought process that the government is prosecuting, not any palpable, measurable harm to individuals or society or even to the government itself.
Exactly. And the thing to keep in mind is that by redefining crime in this way, in essence, everyone is a criminal. This is, I'll tell you what this is like. This is like the old crimes of analogy in the Soviet Union.
Right.
You know, the Berlin Wall went down 20 years, but apparently the Soviets must have won because we've adopted their criminal code.
We're chatting with Professor William Anderson of Frostburg State University. The reason we're talking about this is because the Supreme Court is hearing some appeals of people who've been convicted under this statute. Now, you follow this better and more closely than anybody else in the country. If the Supreme Court invalidates this statute, I think you're going to see a massive number of appeals filed with federal courts by well-known defendants behind federal lockups who should never have been there. Oh,
exactly. And now some people who are near the end of their sentences, for example, like Jack Abramoff, will not have the time to do it, so they probably won't bother, although they might try to file later in order to have their names cleared. But, in fact, it'll also affect cases that are in progress. Cases like the one against Rod Blagojevich, the former governor of Illinois, and also his brother Rob. And it's going to have an effect on future cases, past cases, and it will take a huge weapon away from federal prosecutors. And I would say this is an unconstitutional weapon, because if you have what is in essence an ex post facto law, or that in its results is ex post facto, by that alone, it should be declared unconstitutional.
Professor Anderson, it's a pleasure. Thanks for joining us on Freedom Watch.
Well, thank you very much, Judge.